Chapter 5. The Attack on Washington, D.C. In August of 1814, President Madison was upset. 2 years had passed. The war was still going on. The U.S. Army had won some battles, and it had lost some battles. The British had landed an army near Washington, D.C. British soldiers were marching. Madison hoped the U.S. Army would be able to stop them. At the time, Washington, D.C. was a young town. Some buildings had just been finished, such as the Capitol. Others were not finished yet. Still, it was an important place. It was where the U.S. Congress met to make laws. It was where the Supreme Court met. The President's house was a special house that had been constructed for the President. Today, it is called the White House. It was only about 10 years old at the time. It was home to President Madison and his wife, Dolly. President Madison was aware that there was going to be a big battle outside the city. He planned to go support the troops. He ordered some soldiers to protect Mrs. Madison and the President's house. Then he jumped on his horse and rode off. The battle outside the city did not go well. The U.S. Army was beaten. People quickly found out about the defeat. The army had lost. The British were coming. People in the city panicked. They grabbed their things and ran away. The roads were jammed with people and carts. President Madison could not get back to the President's house. His wife Dolly was left there with servants and soldiers. The soldiers ran away. Mrs. Madison could not stay in the President's house. The British would be there soon. She had to flee. Mrs. Madison hoped to take as much with her as she could. But which things should she take? There were many fine things in the President's house. She loved the lamp that hung in one room, but there was no way she could take that. It was too heavy. She had a big closet of fancy dresses. She loved them too. But there were more important things for her to carry away. In the end, Mrs. Madison left most of her own things behind. Instead, she carried away things that were important to the American people. She grabbed papers and letters. She stuffed as many of them as she could into a trunk. Mrs. Madison was ready to leave. Then she remembered one last thing. It was a painting of George Washington. She did not want the painting to fall into the hands of the British. She called one of President Madison's trusted servants, Paul Jennings, for help. There was no time to take the painting gently from its frame. Jennings and the other servants broke the frame so they could quickly remove the canvas painting. They carefully rolled the canvas like a tube and carried it away. "It is done," said Dolly Madison. Then she ran out the door to safety.